Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am super excited today to introduce my friend Chelsea Olson. She is a holistic leadership coach. She helps high performers reduce burnout and create a life and business they love. She believes that we are only as strong as our leaders, and that is the key to curating a better world for generations to come. She has an extensive background in education and curriculum development, business development, and has worked as a yoga therapist specializing in chronic pain, PTSD, and anxiety recovery for 7 years. She now incorporates her Eastern and Western backgrounds to strategically guide her clients into their full personal power without burning out. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Healer Revolution. I have my friend on, Chelsea Olson. She is a holistic leadership coach, and also she has worked as a yoga therapist that specialized in chronic pain, PTSD, and anxiety recovery. So I am really thrilled to have her on today. She has a lot of experience working with other women that are similar to me, and most likely you as a listener too. So hi, Chelsea.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. So we really don't know each other at all. And I would really love to hear your story, how you got here, how you came into this space, and basically like how you have developed these titles and what they mean.
Well, the story is, it's hard to say, I say put a spiral in a box or turn a circle into a line. So there looks to be some time jumping, I guess we'll put it that way within the story itself. But really, this story started when I was a kid. I'd had chronic pain my whole life from elementary school on. And I don't really, not that I don't think, I know I didn't really have the container or the demonstration or the words to describe what it was I was experiencing. I don't think, again, I know that I wasn't really aware that that's what I was experiencing as a young kid and as a preteen and as a teenager and even into young adulthood. And so that was a long journey of even getting to that point of recognizing that I was experiencing chronic pain. So I was on a lot of medications when I was younger, doing a lot of testing. As I got older, I got really heavy into self-medication through drugs and partying and doing all the things that help us to numb out and feel something at the same time when we're not really able to do either of those on our own. Fast forward a little bit of time, I was able to graduate college and had the privilege of making my own decisions because I didn't really have any debt, student loan debt. Threw away all the life plans and embarked on 2.5 years of solo travel within the States and internationally. So I traveled alone for that long. Traveling alone that long gives you a lot of time to really sit with yourself. And I spent about 6 months in the States doing that ahead of time. And then I went to Thailand and I got a job there. I taught at a school. The gig was, I pay you some money, you find me an apartment and a job. But I was given the crappiest apartment. I literally lived in the red light district.
Oh, wow.
My door rattled every single night from the bass bumping of the surrounding clubs. I had no internet, no phone. It was just me in this box that was like, I mean, it was literally like the universe was putting me in this box that was, look at your shit, look at your shit, look at it, look at it, look at it, look at it. I mean, I couldn't escape it. I could not escape. It was incredibly intense. I had just left college where I had really discovered my pressure release for all the pain I was feeling through rock climbing. being outside, riding. I was a cyclist for commute for almost 10 years. So I was always on my bike outside. I was always outside moving. And here I was in the city that was pretty polluted, really trashed, and I was trapped. Me, myself, and I. So that's kind of a turning point in the journey of just the layers of that pain starting to come to the surface. We'll put it that way. So again, fast forward a little bit, and I will actually rewind. Okay, this is the time jumping. By the time I was 16, I was taking tramadol, which is a painkiller, every single day. I was prescribed just to manage the pain. So I was 16 on basically a synthetic opiate, and that was my life trajectory. Luckily, I have really invested parents, and a year later, my mom said, "What? Have you ever heard of yoga? Why don't you try this thing I just found?" And it was not cool yet. It wasn't discovered by mass Western popularity. So the only class that was available was in the basement of a church. It was seniors yoga, but my body was just as old as a 65-year-old next to me. And seated forward fold, which is your legs straight out. I could not reach my knees in a fold. It was very bound, very tight. And that was, again, also a part of the journey of the pain kind of coming to the surface. But it was just so minimal at that time. So fast forward to the travel, then fast forward again. I was on this path of self-discovery and just was really committed to yoga because it was the only thing that worked. So I'm not a person that's anti anything. I'm really, when it comes to wellness, I'm only anti disembodied guidance. But east, west, it all has a place. So I just followed what worked. So on the journey, I just dove more and more deeply into my personal yoga practice. And yoga is not just physical movement. It's breathing, it's meditation, it's philosophy, it's lifestyle, it's everything about your life. And so when I say deeper, it was not just like I got stronger. It was I got deeper into really the self-evaluation and continuing to cleanse myself. And I say the healing is like a video game. Your reward for accomplishing a level is getting into a harder level. So it's like,
that's a great analogy.
I broke through. Oh, goodness. Oh, this hurts even more. So that just summarizes essentially the next chapter, which was, and simultaneously, I say yoga as a way of pulling you in for something. And then it has another door, another door, another door. So that's what I mean by deepening the practice. And so it helped me see not only was I experiencing physical pain, but I was experiencing immense anxiety, terrible anxiety. I was having terrible insomnia. I've had multiple bouts in my life of not sleeping for 4 to 6 months straight, which will wreck your nervous system or wreck your sense of sanity. So kind of opened up that door. And then by walking through that door, I then started to realize this repeated sexual trauma that had happened in my life in my 20s and my teens and early high school. And then again, the video game analogy, fast forward again, many years, and really illuminated that there was just early childhood, kindergarten age sexual trauma that really planted the seed for all of this pain, which then brought on all the drug use, which then brought all the concussions that came with impulsivity and kind of like almost 10 blackout concussions. And, that really was the seed that started all of this. And so then the journey was, okay, let's get down even more to bare bones, which is really, it's pretty dark stuff to look at childhood molestation and assault. But it's been a deep process of being open-minded and just, again, following what works. And then also being really narrow in my focus and committed to the path. So it's a long story, but that's the summary of it all. I guess you asked about how I got my professional credentials. Do you want me to go into that or do you want me to pause there?
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot. So you've been through a whole heck of a lot. And I think that some things that you mentioned that are really important are the childhood illness and how we go into that fight, flight, freeze response. But as a child, we don't have access to fight or flight. So a lot of times we'll go into freeze. And I think a lot of pain disorders and mental health issues are related to just any kind of like either the big T traumas for sure, but also even the little T traumas that kind of get started when we're very, very young. And you've definitely been through some pretty significant big T traumas that kind of perpetuated a many years of self-sabotage and just continuing to abuse your body. And a lot of times what we do is we relive those traumas, or we reenact those traumas over and over again, kind of hoping that maybe something different will turn out. So I don't know if you experience that in like your relationships too.
I think it took so long to even recover the memory that happened. If I did it, I don't think it was necessarily on a conscious level, but what I can definitely speak to is just the really low self-value. Because when you're 5 years old, your entire understanding of the world is based on that one experience and how to keep yourself safe and that experience and how to digest that and understand that. So there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of fear. And when that is the core of your being at that time, or this conditioned being, we seek out what we believe we deserve. So I definitely sought out. I mean, I actually had some amazing relationships, even when I was younger. Like I actually really all my partners were amazing except for one in college. And he was a lesson in personal empowerment and setting my boundaries and not being responsible for other people's suffering. So, even in that, it was beautiful. Whatever. It just is what it is. It has a place. Of course. I don't want to like advocate for that kind of behavior, but so, I don't know. I think maybe, but I think it was more just kind of just seeking out that same frequency of connection.
Yeah. Understood. So you said something just now. When you're young, you really like your whole being is that sense of safety. Did yoga bring you those feelings of safety, or is there anything else that you did to try and like bring yourself back into your body feeling safe?
Well, I think when I started yoga, younger me is really different than present day me. So I think what yoga did for me was just, I would say it's like a pressure cooker, and we're just trying to find something that like an old school pressure cooker has a button on it. That you push to release the pressure. Like Instapots don't really have that. I guess they kind of do still. I guess you just turn the knob, but it's not quite as dramatic. So I like yoga was just a way of pushing the button on the pressure cooker. It just was the only thing that other than painkillers that actually relieved pain. And so, as you know, when you're in a physical stress, that signals emotional stress. And so I think that was definitely a part of interrupting that neurological loop, that neurological pattern of always being in stress, high stress. But but yoga wasn't enough. I mean, it was also, I'd say really the core of it is inner child work, because that plays out into how I interact with myself on a daily basis. So I'd say that's more of how I approach it now. Creating safety is really listening to what I need and prioritizing that more than anything, because even though I was doing all the practices, one of my quotes is say, you can do a handstand and still be an asshole. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. So there was definitely an era where I was doing all the things, but I wasn't finding any relief. And it's because I wasn't doing them in an embodied way. I was doing them because I was told I would help. So what I mean by embodied is now it's checking in with myself and really evaluating, is this what I need? Is this what's going to feel good? Or is this what I think I should be doing? And basically setting really firm boundaries with the shoulds and doing what I need to feel good. And so the difference of that sense of safety was beforehand, I didn't feel safe within myself because I didn't trust that I would take care of me. So now I have a really deep sense of trust that I'll take care of myself. So that deeper layer of anxiety has just really melted. And I think that's something that's really missing from the conversation of mental health.
Yeah. And did you work with people one-on-one as well? Therapists and other life coaches, Reiki, energy healers?
Yeah, the journey was really diverse. So I definitely had a lot of teachers all along the way. Yeah. And worked with a lot of healers, a lot of body work. So, I mean, I probably spent tens of thousands of dollars on body work. It's just because it's all in the body and I couldn't access it in my mind. And I had a couple of bouts of talk therapy. It just was, and there was times when it was really helpful. And then there was times when it just really wasn't. So the body, again, I just followed what worked. And nutrition, diet, healing was super important. So yeah, I've definitely worked with mentors. I mean, you really can't do it alone.
Yeah, agreed.
Not possible. There are times when I've been on my own, and that's the learning, is to take what I've learned and hold myself accountable to applying it. But I could only really learn that through teachers.
Yeah.
And bringing it back to your first question, how I got my professional certifications is through my own experience. So even my teachers was me learning how to lead myself into my own well-being. And I would just pursue the academic training to be able to do that.
That's awesome. And what is your academic training?
Yeah. So I have a bachelor's undergrad in education, and I've written curriculum for a couple different schools. And I've been as a yoga teacher, or my yoga background, the 500-hour RYT, registered yoga teacher, trauma informed. It's like an 80-hour certification. I've actually done over 1,000 hours of yoga training. I'll just summarize it that way. I don't need to go into every single certification. Over 1,000 hours of training. And so a lot of emphasis in anatomy and physiology. And then I also have training in Ayurveda and Ayurvedic nutrition, as well as so Ayurveda is a sister science to yoga, and it literally translates to the science of life. So it's like a very scientific as well as esoteric look at how our lifestyle affects the way we feel. And it's just really strategic. And I found it incredibly helpful for feeling in control of my well-being. Gosh, and I'm like, what else here?
Like, what else have I done? I know the feeling.
Well, and I mean, you go back into when I was teaching yoga, and that was my primary career, I taught over 150 different workshops. So a lot of the training is also through self-teaching, because I've done a lot of programs, and a lot of times what I saw was, as a teacher myself, as someone who has an education background, I didn't feel like it was being delivered very effectively. Basically, listen to me talk and then go and now you're done. And as a body practitioner of yoga, that wasn't a very effective way. So, and they're expensive, they're not, or they just required financial commitment. And so there was also an era in my life of deep self-study. So I've also been trained in yoga therapy for the pelvic floor, a little bit of tantric training as well. So there's an era where I was doing tantric practices for sexual trauma healing. And so anything from anatomy to energy anatomy, I can talk about. So that's where, with the leadership embodied mission that I really stand for now, is about embodying your own inner leadership. And it's all about, because a lot now our current model of leadership is really hollow, and something that's hollow will break under the weight that it's carrying, which is what we're really seeing in our culture right now. Is the only model we know for leadership is like, suck it up or push it down.
Yep.
I can do it. And it doesn't work. So that's really, it's taking all of that accumulated knowledge from business to education and organizing information and healing and wellness and nutrition and communication and relationships and your pelvic floor and your breath, all of it, into how do I lead myself into my fullest potential.
That's amazing. It sounds like you really have embodied literally every aspect of healing.
Probably not literally, because, I'm probably only on level 50 of the video game, and there's infinite levels. But I've definitely leaps and bounds. It's been, there was definitely a time when I had to make a choice. You're either doing this or you're not.
Yeah.
So it's going to hurt. You want to do it, but you're going to feel a whole lot better at the end. And one of my teachers once said, she said, don't set up camp when you're walking through hell. Basically, like, if you're in it, just keep going. So it was this, but it's just been many, many years. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you offer now? Like, how do you work with people now? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I'm really in this awesome creative cocoon of designing and developing what I'm about to launch. Currently, I work with one-on-one with clients, but even that, just an example of the embodied leadership is I only limit my client load to 6 people, because I work with them really intensively. And I've done the whole 10, 15, 20 clients a week, and I was super burnt out. So my one-on-one option is pretty limited. That's like super exclusive. So I'm in the process of launching different live series that are more about 10 weeks long. I'm definitely an immersive gal. I really like immersive experiences because I can go to those deeper places. And so I'm going to be kind of co-hosting these live experiences with the private option. And then I also have a podcast, and then nothing's in the work. Nothing is solidly planned yet, but I am committed to launching annual retreats. That has been in the psychic vision for many, many years. And it's either this year or next for sure. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah. I have been dying to go to a retreat literally my whole life, and it just has not happened yet. And I was thinking maybe 2020, and then of course 2020 happened.
Yeah. Psych.
Yeah. And then I went through my own like really severe health crises after that. So it's just been on hold for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really respect that you limit to 6 people. That's an awesome way to listen to your own like burnout signals and boundaries. Burnout is something that speaks near and dear to my heart because I also worked as a therapist in psychiatric and detox hospitals. So I have experienced that full-heartedly with the hair falling out, heart palpitations, can't sleep, wired and tired, adrenal, mitochondria failure.
Yeah.
So that's one of your big topics that you help other women with, right?
Yes. Also near and dear to the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you go into kind of what that means with working with somebody?
Sure. So super simplified.
Yeah.
To say that stress is just a force that creates change.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not plan this, but ideally have this hair tie right here. And it's just sitting like loose and whatever in my hands that if I hook funds on each end and I pull, it's changing shape. I can twist it, I can push it. I'm just applying stress to it. And it's fine in the moment. But if I were to pull it and then leave it like that for a day or a week or a month, it's going to completely lose its integrity. And it won't never get it back. So stress isn't good or bad. It's just a force. However, its effect is what can be construed as positive or negative or constructive or destructive. That's more of the language I like to use because I think we get really caught up in what's good and what's bad. And we want to like ostracize what's bad, but it's all welcomed because life is dynamic. So anyways, so stress can either be positive or negative, meaning moving us towards our fullest potential or away. So I usually start with removing the negative stressors because you can add positive stress all you want, but until you remove the negative, you're just adding more stress. And I think this is something that happens a lot. People get on social to try and help themselves. And this is the importance of a teacher and a mentor. And they're doing all the things that they think they should be doing, and they're not finding the results. They might find a little bit, like just like a glimpse, but it's just too much effort for not enough return. So starting with removing negative stress is super, super important. So this looks a lot like looking at how we're wasting our time, energy, and money. Then we add positive stress. So that could be diet, that could be movement, that could be your lifestyle. I oftentimes start with organization, as unsexy and not holistic as that is. It's like if you can't keep your time and tasks in order, you're going to constantly feel in a sense of chaos. Mm-hmm. And when I was in college, I had a light bulb break on the floor and I didn't clean it up for like 6 weeks because I was so chaotic. So no judgment. I say this as someone who has had to teach myself how to be organized. So now I can teach it, but it's really a game changer. So I usually start with education of the nervous system, and then we go into organization, and then usually we start to go more deeply. But the removing of the negative stress can look a lot of different ways. So usually we start more like I say, internal, external. So usually start more external, and then we add more like external positive stress. Then we move more internal. Let's remove the internal negative stress, add internal positive stress. And they're all connected. It's like inhale, exhale, it's all connected. So as you're working with the external, it shifts the internal. And as you're working with the internal, it shifts the external. So it's not like this either or, it's always all meshing together. But that's usually kind of the process I go through because that's where we can most easily access ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like most people can find their shoulder before they can find a thought. So we want to start with the external tangible thing that we can physically manipulate. And then once we've created space, then we can more easily access the more subtle stuff that is really at the core of what we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So when you say, let's say you're working with somebody whose main stressor is their kids, like they're not going to get rid of their kids, right? When you say change like the internal stressor, are you speaking like in regards to mindset and like cognitive behavioral therapy kind of practices?
Kids is a funny one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have kids yet. Mm-hmm. However, my bachelor's is in elementary education. And so I've worked with kids for 15 years. I've taught, even when I was a professional yoga teacher, I taught in schools for 5 years. So I worked with second grade through high school. So I've taught kids my whole life. I've worked with special needs. I worked in nature schools. Like I've worked with kids.
Yeah.
Of course, if they're infants, this is a different story. But once they become toddler age and even a little bit older, we often really underestimate their capacity for independence and their capacity to learn on their own. And so external is looking at basically what ways, basically creating boundaries with your kids is really the summary of what I'm trying to get at, is how can we create boundaries with your kids? So there's like real simple systems. If they're little, say you work from home and they're always coming and asking you for stuff. Okay, well, if they're always coming and asking you for a snack every day, well, let's just set up a snack station and let's do it together. Let's go to the store and we're going to pick out our snacks for the week. Like it can be a fun thing. Right? It doesn't be like another thing to do. So they're not coming in. You could literally put a sign on the doorknob that says, do not come in unless it's an emergency. And you specifically pick those times. So we can set it now. That's different ages. Everyone is different. Every kid has different needs. Internally is looking at guilt, fear, and then like shame, usually like I should be doing something for them all the time. And then that kind of goes into self-value and relinquishing control because they're their own beings. And so it's learning kind of that dynamic of how can I access this in a very physical, practical way? Like, let's set up the snack station. And then how can I access an internal way of finding more peace with the fact that they might make a mess, or they might break something, or maybe they get lonely for the 30 minutes I'm in here. And I don't want them to feel lonely, but how can I accept that they are independent of me? So kids is an interesting one. So I guess that's maybe a long explanation, but
that was great. Have you had to give up coffee for health reasons? Maybe because of the stress it was putting on your adrenals, maybe because it was messing with your sleep, maybe because you felt terrible after drinking it, or maybe because you were told coffee had mold on the beans and you needed to stay away from mold. Well, what if I told you there's an organic, mycotoxin-free, quality coffee that contains reishi spores or Ganoderma lucidum? Ganoderma lucidum helps to modulate your immune system, adapt to stress, balance hormones, and doesn't give you the jitters or shakes like regular coffee used to. Sounds too good to be true, right? It's called King Coffee by the company Organo. And King Coffee came into my life when I was struggling with chronic hives, full body eczema, and mast cell activation syndrome. I hadn't drank coffee in years because it made me feel anxious, shaky, and clammy. So I had no expectations that drinking King Coffee would be any different. However, I decided to give it a try after seeing lots of amazing practitioners talk about the benefits of reishi online. I tried a 7-day sample and the chronic hives were gone by day 5. I was in shock. After that, I dove into the research on reishi and found that there are over 3,000 peer-reviewed PubMed clinical trials using reishi Ganoderma as an intervention. The company Organo also has a patent protected on their harvesting process. They double crack open the spore shells, which makes them up to 80% more potent than the body of the reishi, which is usually used in other reishi products. This also makes the spores 90% more bioavailable for your body to use. If you would like to try King Coffee, visit thehealerrevolution.myorganogold.com, or for a 7-day trial, you can check out my link tree on my Instagram at Amanda Panacea. Yeah, that's a question I get all the time. Like, well, I can't leave my job, or I'm not going to get rid of my kids, and that's my main stressor. So it's really helpful to hear how you break it down like that.
Yeah, I think those small steps are super important when we're overwhelmed, because if someone gives you a concept when you're overwhelmed, it's just nothing is going to get done.
Yeah.
It's just going to be like, yeah, I don't have space for that. And then we'll just go into what we've been doing. And I think also like a positives, like a lot of that is releasing negative. And so adding positive is then also evaluating how you can call in more support systems. Mm-hmm. And then there's sometimes a financial conversation of, I don't want to spend the money on this. I should spend it on this. And again, the should. We can always find money for something most of the time. if you're committed, basically. So it's recognizing I am worthy of the support and looking at how that ripples out into the health of the relationships of the mother-daughter or kid, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot there.
Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. So with your 6 clients that you work with, how does your week look? Like, how much time do you spend with them? What does that look like on paper?
Well, the clients themselves, I meet with them once a week, and then I offer, they say 24/6 access through Voxer. I just don't really check my phone on Saturdays. I just don't want to. So I just don't. If I can't respond, I will. But otherwise, I just relinquish that expectation that I have to be anyone for anybody on Saturdays. And then a lot of it is, and the reason why I do that is because this 1 hour exchange is so fragmented. It's not really learning how to integrate the work into the small moments. So it's like, okay, I put the thing on the doorknob and my kid won't stop knocking and I'm going insane. What do I do right now? Do I say, seriously, stop and like react? Or can I plug in and get the guidance in this moment? And that's usually why people find a lot faster results, is because we're able to work on those tiny moments instead of once a week for an hour. Then I also, if they have, I'll pre-record practices for them. So if it's either movement, if it's a meditation, if it's a breathing practice, it's usually the bulk of what I'm recording, but I'll record it specifically for them. So then by the end of our time together, they have a whole library of stuff that they can access. I'm also in the process of building out an app. I've already recorded the content, just kind of in the process of making it a product. And then so they'll have access to that for free, because it'll be like a membership essentially. And then I also give them discounts to any workshops that I offer or retreats in the future.
That's
Is that
amazing.
what you meant? The work I do with them? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because 6 doesn't sound like very many. So I'm wondering, how much time do you actually spend with them? Like you said, 1 hour a week plus the 24/6 Voxer app, which if people don't know what Voxer is, it's basically like IM app that you can also leave voice memos and pictures. So it's kind of like another phone number, really.
Like a walkie-talkie kind of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The reason why I picked 6 is because I don't want more than 6. I have time for it, but I just don't want to use that time doing that. So that's why I have 6. Because at that point I can reach my financial goals, and that's enough for there. So then I can allocate my attention other places like my podcast or the retreats or the membership without sacrificing my sanity. Because I still spend easily 35 hours a week at my desk.
Yeah.
So I do have more time for them, but I don't want to give it to anybody else. I like lots of free time.
Yeah. And you definitely sound like you figured that out. So that's amazing.
I've probably tried 12 different business models, because I also had the therapy model where it was come in for an hour and then I'll see you again. And it was just kind of this ongoing thing. And all right, 10-minute break, next one. And it just felt like I was just seeing people forever. And it's not that they weren't improving, but I didn't feel very clear about their improvement. And it just kind of felt scattered. And I was really tired. I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was tired of being in my office. I was tired of teaching the same things over and over and over again. And so it's really, I'd rather, because I'm working with fewer people, I charge them a lot more, but I also give them a lot better results a lot more quickly. So that's more of a model I find that works for me.
Yeah. And you hit it right on the money when you're working with several, like a huge caseload of back after person, after person, after person, after person. You forget what you did with the first person and you're repeating yourself a lot. So I think it's like within 6 months of doing traditional therapy, I knew that it wasn't for me either. Like, this is way too hard for the amount of money that therapists get paid. And you don't feel like you're making that much of an impact. So I think that hopefully more people will maybe go towards the business model that you're kind of creating, which is one of the goals that I wanted to talk about on this platform, is to have people on like you that have figured out what works for you the best, and also your clients, so that we all win. And so it's a cascade effect of, I'm going to help you, you're going to learn these skills, you're going to move on and help someone else, and domino effect, we all as a collective start to improve.
Yeah, it's so important, especially as healers or as teachers of healing, because it's literally the most important thing. And when we're burnt out, the teachings and the healing we're doing, this isn't very strong. Again, it's that hollow leadership. It's like, well, I want to lead. I'm here for you. I have the best of intentions, but I am so drained that there's nothing left inside of me. Like I feel hollow. So I'm not really able to hold you very well. And I have two thoughts. Can I
Oh yeah,
talk a little bit more?
Of course.
So one thing I actually did that I'm in the past that I might do it again before I moved online, I did this was a professional training, yoga therapy for mental health for psychotherapists, because there's so much sitting and just talking and you just get stuck all in the mind. It's like we're thinking about it and we're talking about it. So the only energy that's moving is our prefrontal cortex and our, what's this called? What's the thing I'm using right now?
Our mouth.
Our mouth. Thank you. Our voice. I was like, and the thing that it's not working for me. And those are so intimately connected, right? Our conscious thoughts and our voice. But as you know, and as now research is strongly proving, our mental health is not just it's usually not in our conscious thoughts. It's usually in the subconscious thoughts and in the body and in the nervous system and our breathing patterns and then our gut and our diet. And so I found that even if you enjoy having that business model and you enjoy having client loads, if you yourself can get up and move and breathe with your clients, you're pushing that button for that pressure cooker so that, like I get to receive this with you, because the practice is the thing that gives, as opposed to the therapist being the one that gives. It's a difference. And so as a therapist, that's how you can then open yourself to receive. And even in times when I've been so tired, I will just put on a recorded meditation, or I'll just pop in my headphones while I'm delivering it to a client. And then it's on my phone. And the next time we use it, I just play it. And so it becomes a really great way to outsource your skill set so you can conserve more energy. And it requires you to pay a lot more attention in the moment of how can I conserve my energy? I think that was the primary thing. I had a second thought, but I forgot what it is. So that's maybe it was all that was meant to be said.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that's a really great idea about recording yourself and making meditations. And I've been learning a lot recently about somatic experiencing and Qigong and Tai Chi and all of those additional like Eastern medicine, energy, body moving type practices. And it's just, yoga did so much for me as well. I was one of those people who I didn't even breathe properly my whole life. I had to relearn how to even sit at a chair and breathe. So all of those things have been so much more impactful than all the talk therapy in the world for so many people. And not that talk therapy doesn't have its place either, but you definitely cannot logically think your way out of a stored emotion or a feeling. You have to do the movement. You have to do the things that actually like get it out of you.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So
out of the nervous system.
yes. So I wanted to ask you a couple intimate questions if you're up for it. Yeah.
I'm open book.
Okay, great. Yeah. You can really tell when people have done the work because they're like, I don't care. I'll tell you everything about my whole life. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm not attached to it anymore. So the big first thing is, what do you feel like was your biggest mistake in like life and health? But then also, what was your biggest win or your biggest accomplishment?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I think they're intimately connected. And the mistake, I don't know if that's the word I would use to describe it, but I would maybe say the biggest obstacle that perpetuated my own suffering. And by illuminating that and overcoming that, I'd say that's my biggest win. And the reason why I don't want to use the word mistake is because it wasn't my choice. Like I didn't actively choose this. And what I'm really referring to is looking for stimulation to fix the problem. It's this new thing. It's this new thing. It's this thing. Do this, do that. All the doing, doing what I should be doing. And instead of just learning how to be. And that comes down to just slowing down, doing less. That used to be my favorite cue. When I taught yoga, I'd just say, try less. I would literally, because I often say, relax the jaw. Relax the jaw, relax the forehead, relax the attitude, like just try less. Because I have always worked with high performers and those people were pretty much always attracted to my classes because of my natural energy. And so they tend to be like, I'm going to perform really well. So it was always just try less. And even though I was giving that cue and that was coming from my own learning experience, it was just a lot of practice to realize that I could totally let go of control. But at the same time, actually interrupting myself here, but because it was a long journey and still is, it's not really ending, because even when you're more into the light side of the video game, oh my gosh, there's more light to be uncovered. There's more light to be uncovered. There's more power. So it just keeps going. But I'd have a desire for it to be something other than what it was. And so I would effort to try and make it different. But the efforting is the problem. I was efforting my whole life. Like, there's a place for the right kind of effort. But when you have been tensing and clenching your whole body from 5 on, you don't need more effort. That's not the answer. And most people have their own expression of that. I was seeing 30 clients a week. I grew up in a family with high expectations. I have never taken a vacation. I don't breathe properly. Like, a lot of people just have a naturally stronger inhale. And so they're slowly hyperventilating all throughout the day. Like, it doesn't matter what your story is. Collectively, generally, the problem is too much efforting. And oftentimes it's to the point where people freeze and fold, they collapse. And so they might identify as like a procrastinator, as I wish I was more disciplined, but it's usually like because there's been too much effort, the hair tie that I'm stretching, the system can't sustain its integrity anymore. So a lot of it has been stop efforting, stop controlling, and just accept and allow whatever it is, and learning how to still appreciate beauty in those moments. Because when I want it to be different, I get obsessed, or I would, and still can, obsessed of how hard the moment was. This is so painful. Oh, I'm in so much pain. I can't believe this. I just want to escape this. And I was creating my own cycles of suffering. Whereas when I started to just say, okay, you know what? I'm in pain and I can still dance. Like, I can be in pain and laugh. I can be in pain and still show up and give gratitude for the food on my plate. I can be experiencing depression and practice compassion. I might not be able to feel compassion when I'm in like a depressive state. Compassion is kind of hard to access, or like the feelings of love, but I can at least try. And I think that comes down into yoga philosophy, which is non-duality, because yoga just means to yoke, to bring everything together. It's wholeness. You are light and dark all at the same time. We inhale and exhale, everything. And so it was really just coming into that I can be many things at once, and just surrendering into that and slowing down was a huge part of that. Because that's really, if the rhythm of our life is a techno party, it's like the nervous system can never recover. We can't sleep in a techno club unless we're super sedated. Like, give me those pills, y'all. Like it just can't happen. And so as someone that had really bad insomnia, I can relate to that, so I think a lot of it was just accepting what is and learning to just be present and not be so dramatic about the pain in the world, and just still show up and commit to beauty, which is also in grief, and it's also in pain, and it's also in anger. The thing that makes that stuff ugly is the judgment and the binding and the like gripping. Like, that's what makes it ugly, because it's not meant to be contained. So it's, it's like putting a wild animal in a tiny kennel, like that gets really chaotic. And so it's just letting the wildness be free. And I think that's, again, I didn't choose that. I was really conditioned into that. So, but that would maybe be my biggest obstacle, my biggest, I don't know, like weight maybe. And then also the biggest win.
Yeah. You're speaking so much my language. I love it.
Yeah.
And you're the third person who also said, I wouldn't call it a mistake. So I may have to reframe that question, because I feel like I'm going to get that answer from almost every person I talk to.
Well, I feel like these journeys have been kind of handed to us.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't choose to be assaulted sexually when I was 5.
Of course
I didn't choose that. That was someone else's mess that I had to clean up. And I didn't choose that. So I think that's, I think you're on the right track, but yeah, that does make sense. I'm like, well, I think a mistake is like something I did on accident.
Yeah.
Or on purpose, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So my other question is in regards to business. So let's rephrase that already. What was your biggest obstacle in business? And then what's been your biggest win?
Gosh, and they're so connected. I'd say the biggest obstacle, and this one actually might be I don't know if it's a mistake. I think there's a part of me that knew it when I was doing it, but that voice was too quiet for me. I hadn't slowed down enough to hear that voice as loud as I needed to. So in a way, it was kind of a mistake because I kept choosing not to listen to that voice, but it just is what it is. Obstacle was really just, I'd say a combo of trusting myself and then slowing down enough to get really crystal clear on my vision. I had a lot of fear around, if I don't do this now, I'm not going to make enough money, and then I'm going to be poor, and then no one's going to like, it's just going to be this contracted, fearful thing. And so I have to do it now so it doesn't get to that. And that's like trying to shove the wild thing into a kennel. It's trying to like suppress and control the grief. It's like, that just doesn't work. And so it wasn't until I totally surrendered, I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to be an active participant. And the best way I can do that right now is just to listen. And for a long time, it was like, don't make a move yet. Not yet. Not yet. And all I wanted was to change it. All I wanted was it to be on my timeline, but it was not yet, not yet, not yet. And simultaneously, even when the vision was clear, I would say, oh, I want this to be done at this time. And I would drastically underestimate how long that would take. And a younger version of me would be like, I'm just going to stay up late to make sure I get it done on time, because if it's not done on time, the whole world will fall apart. But now as I've aged and evolved, I just release the timeline and just push it back. And if I can, sometimes we're in collaboration, that's not an option. But if it's my own personal project, I just have released the timeline. So again, I think it's just kind of releasing the binding and the control and being a really intentional participant with the thing that you're building. So I'd say that's probably the biggest mistake, which actually kind of was a mistake, which goes into branding even. Like I've probably had 5 different expressions of my business, maybe like 7 even of my business of, yeah, I'm this thing. No, maybe I'm more this thing. Oh, I got a new logo, new colors, thinking like that would fix it. And it wasn't until I just sat down and figured it out, like created a strategy so that even I'm building the branding foundational blocks with intention, then it started to move with ease. So I think that clarity is really important.
Yeah, I love how you pointed out it's okay to change what you call yourself, what your message is maybe, and just kind of go with the flow. Because that was something that I did too. I came straight out of school thinking I was going to develop this course and I was going to have this brand, and it just wasn't there. Like I hadn't done anything yet. I had nothing to go off of to talk about. I just had a lot of education. So
yeah,
it just comes with time.
Yeah. And I think that slowing down piece, it's fine. Like this builds over time. And especially in the online space, it's like 20K months tomorrow. And it kind of, even still now, I have to really limit how much I look at that stuff, because it makes me feel this pressure, like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I need to learn more techniques. It's like, no, again, like quiet the chaos, step away from the freak out and drop in and move from a place of spaciousness and groundedness, and it'll be fine. Like just relax. So there's a lot of noise out there to create chaos and stress and more tension. And it's just not helpful at all.
Yeah, agreed. I actually try really hard not to look at other people's Instagrams that may be like colleagues of mine or people that I even love and respect their content, just because I don't want it to cloud my creativity or what I'm working on or what I'm learning about. I found that really helpful, especially like on the weekends, like you said, just turning everything off.
That makes a lot of sense. Because there is a lot, and there's a lot of repeated and recycled content, which is fine, but it is important to create space for your own self to express. That's a good tip.
And not compare yourself to those people and how much they're producing and their growth, which is hard for everybody now, because even like 6-year-olds have Instagrams and Facebooks now and TikToks. So everybody's kind of dealing with that self-comparison. Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Why don't I look like that? Why aren't I getting those responses?
Yeah. Well, that's like all coming down to, I think if we as individuals feel enough, then we don't struggle with that as much. And I think that comes from slowing down, at least in my experience. I'm just speaking for myself, but I know that for me, I thought I was really moving fast and pushing myself to do things and have energy to do because I was afraid that I wouldn't be enough. Like I have, like, I'm going to fail if I don't meet the deadline. I'm not going to make enough money if I don't do this right now. Like it was all fear driven out of not enough. And so I think it was really that in that slowing down, we get space for those fears to surface and we can let them go, literally get them out of the body. And we see that it's just not true. It's like, whoa, that was an illusion that's been controlling my life, forever. So I don't know. I think there's definitely that's why I'm really passionate about leadership and how we show up as leaders, not if only in your business, but in your life, because we're only as strong as our leaders. And if our leaders are telling us we're not enough, well, then we're going to think we're not enough. And then we're going to tell the people below us they're not enough. And then they're going to, like, the chain will just keep going. So someone has to break the cycle. And it comes with, you can do even less and you are just as valuable. You can literally do nothing and you are just as valuable. So I think that's is an important conversation to be having.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a great message. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. This was a really awesome conversation. I'm so glad I got to get to know you, and we have so much in common. So I'm sure that's why the universe has brought us together. Is there anything you wanted to add for the very end?
Whatever would have been fine. I wasn't sure if you put it in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah, of course I'll put it in there, but yeah, that's good. See, I'm learning how to do this.
Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, technically my website, which is chelsea-olson.com, Instagram, Chelsea_Olson_wellness. LinkedIn is my name, Chelsea Olson. So
do you have a wait list?
That is a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it just, and again, just as I was saying, go with the flow. Like if I have one person on the wait list and my life is more spacious and I just see them, I go to 7. If I don't have space, then I just say no. And I refer to them like other trainings that they can do in the meantime to kind of prepare. So even that is fluid, but it's all, again, tailored to what I have energy for in the moment. So.
I love it. Yeah. Listen to your body, learn how to read its language, basically.
And I have found that slowing down is super important and learning how to do that, because the faster you move, the more you miss. And the faster you move, the less time you have because you miss it. The first time someone asks you to sit still for 2 minutes, you're like, oh my God, is this done yet? Like, has it been 2 minutes yet? So if you don't believe me, just try sitting still for 2 minutes and you'll know what I mean. The more you slow down, the more time you get, the more you notice. So I think that kind of just, we gotta try a little less, I think, as a culture, and just really fall into our value.
You've seen that movie, is it Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's teaching the guy how to surf, Paul Rudd, and he's like, do less. Yes. No, do less.
Yes. Surfing is a great teacher for that. Oh my gosh. Because, Matt, it's like, have you ever surfed before?
No.
It's like you get on and the wave is like, and you think, oh my gosh, I need to stand up now. It's kind of the energy of anxiety. Like, it's really rocky. And if you try to stand up too soon, you will wipe out. Like, it is 100% guaranteed. But there is one moment of stillness where the wave suspends. And that's where you can hop up. Because if you wait for it, because then it'll fall. It's just like breath. It's like that little suspension is when you can jump up. But if you wait too long or go too soon, you just 100% will wipe out. Maybe if you're like a pro, you can swing it, but it's pretty cool. Surfing is a great teacher for that. Yes. Wait.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Surfing's awesome.
I love it. I'll have to try surfing now. All right. Well, thank you so much. EMFs, electrosmog, and geopathic stress are an increasing problem in today's world. As someone who lives in a major city, one of the ways that I help lessen this kind of stress on my body is with a Soma Vedic. Soma Vedic is designed on the principles of controlled release of energy from precious and semi-precious stones and metals such as platinum, palladium, gold, and silver. This creates a coherent field more than 2,800 square feet. It's an Eastern approach to wellness combined with Western frequency therapy technology, and this puts Soma Vedic in a very unique device category all on its own. It helps with mitigating negative effects of EMF, radiation, including 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, geopathic stress, Curry and Hartmann lines, oxidative stress, and free radicals. Somavedic also structures water and changes it into mountain quality spring water that is natural to our bodies and cells. It can structure and harmonize any tap water or bottled water. It provides water in its most natural state, just like nature intended. And you can harness the benefit just by placing your water jug next to Somavedic. You can check out somavedic.com, and for 10% off, you can use my code PANACEA, PANACEA.